Welcome back, Curious Hearts. I'm Vera. Together, in every episode, we get to explore what it is we really believe, how we practice, and we get to meet people who are on their own spiritual path. Together, we begin. Hey, y'all, welcome back. I am really excited and humbled to have this conversation with Zia today. Zia and I met at Wild Lotus, where she has been a dedicated student and practitioner, and then most recently went through our teacher training. But she's one of the most humble, devoted practitioners I've seen in a really long time. In every conversation with Zia, she is 100% with you and open and curious. And so when I was thinking about folks who are, I like to have a mix of interviews between people who are, professionals in the spiritual world, and then also, people who are just what we would call householders, like walking the walk and like living in the everyday world, and who have this like really deep spiritual well to move through the world. And I think it is important for me at least to say that when I first met Zia for I think at least the first couple of years that I knew you, she was working as an immigration attorney. And in the current moment of the world, one would need a really, really deep spiritual well to be doing that work. So I'm just welcome. I'm so glad to share your experience with folks. Is there anything? Hi, is there anything that you want to say before we jump in?
Since you've known me for a while, you also know this about me. I frequently experience tears, and that doesn't mean that something's going wrong. And I would anticipate when I'm discussing things that are close to my heart that I might get teary. And for me, that used to be a huge source of embarrassment, and I would try to not access these parts of myself for fear of showing that, because it felt very vulnerable. But the way I try to move through the world now is that I try to be as open and vulnerable as I have the courage to be in any given moment. And I feel like that is my dharma, and I feel like that makes it more easeful for me to move through the world and be seen. And I do that also intentionally to try to let other people know that that I'm a safe environment for them to be open and vulnerable.
Well, I feel that every time I see you. And we somewhere along the lines, I think, right, we were socialized to believe that like sort of public expression of emotion was somehow like weak or unprofessional. That's the other favorite, right? Like you can't cry at work. It's not personal. And really all that's saying is that your whole self is not welcome here. And there is a reason that the podcast is called Curious Hearts, right? I feel like there is this like deep inner knowing that we are hungry for. And if we shut part of our heart down, right, like we lose that part. So thanks for saying it. And I'm just so glad that you got to model that for the folks who are listening.
Yeah. I have a funny anecdote before we get into
Please.
So my boss at my last job, she's a lawyer, but she was the first person that I had known who was a lawyer, but also really into astrology. She was trying to do my birth chart, and I was born not in a hospital. I was born in my parents' farmhouse. My dad is a doctor, or my mom is too.
Wow.
But yeah, so he delivered me, and the result of that is that on my birth certificate I don't have a time of birth, and so when my boss was trying to do my birth chart. She's like, "What time are you born?" I was like, "I don't know." She's like, "It'll be on your birth certificate." I look at my birth
Like,
certificate,
turns
doesn't have it
out,
on me.
nope.
I asked my parents. My father does not remember what time I was born. My mother remembers that she had the first labor pains when she was making breakfast for my brothers and my dad. And then I have a photo of my head crowning out of my mom. And that my parents had invited a lot of people from the community over. So there's a photo with a bunch of people in the background. And so I'm like, using that logic brain, I'm like, well, it must have taken several hours to collect this many people to come over and witness this thing. And so, like the beginning was making breakfast, and then there were lots of people there. So I was like, it must have been, I would say, afternoon when this photo was taken. And so Jenny, my boss, was like, okay, well, if you were born between 12:34 and 3:33, then this is your rising sign. And so she sent me like a little snippet, and the question was, am I a Cancer rising? And she sent me this little snippet of a description, and she's like, I think that you're a Cancer rising because you frequently have tears in your eyes. And when she said that, my first instinct was to be totally horrified that like my boss knew that I'm a
Mm.
crier. But soon after that, I was able to be like, oh, it's okay for me to be exactly how I am, and and I'm not being judged. That's just a description of how I show up in the world, and that was incredibly liberating. Like, I didn't realize that I didn't have to hide that part of myself, even in front of my boss. And
What a
she wrote me an
gift.
awesome birth chart.
What a gift. And yeah, in my mind, I went like, right, if it's before Cancer, it's a Gemini rising. After Cancer, it's a Leo rising. Also, like, I mean, I could imagine you having a Leo rising, but yeah, I think Cancer rising is like, oh, mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
I love that little anecdote for all those reasons. Okay, so your parents lived on a farmhouse and they invited a bunch of people over to watch you being born, which is a
Mhm.
whole it's like an image in and of itself. What was your spiritual or religious life like growing up in that context?
My parents were both raised Christian. I don't know what ilk, not Catholic, a Protestant faith. And then when they went to medical school, they decided that they wanted to like try on different religions and decide what they wanted to be going forward. And they narrowed it down to two things. One, the Baha'i faith,
Mm.
and two, Catholic. Like, I can't imagine two diametrically opposed. Yeah, like one is like no clergy, no formal structure, no hierarchy, and the other is like the most hierarchical thing. Like you don't even get to talk to God. You have to go through an intermediary. Well, they
But they're
wound up picking.
both pretty passionate, right? There's like a right that sense of like devotion
Yeah.
and yeah, anyway, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So they wound up picking the Baha'i route. So when I was born, my parents were Baha'is, and so I was raised in the Baha'i faith for the first, I'm going to say, 6-ish years of my life. My parents got divorced when I was quite young, and then when my dad remarried my stepmom, she had been raised a Protestant, and so we wound up going to different types of churches, starting when I was like 7 years old, and we went to the Baha'i Center and for a while or periodically, and then we tried different Protestant churches. And then we went to the Catholic church, and we were a rowdy bunch. I was one of 6, and
Wow.
we were and we were loud, and so my parents kind of by default picked the Catholic church because there were lots of other kids there, and so the noise that we made as a family was they felt less disruptive, like that truly.
Perfect.
And later it my dad was already kind of flirting with that when he was deciding what religion to pick, so it makes sense. But so anyway, starting at about, I don't know, age, I would say like 6 to 9 or something, they were trying different things, and then we settled into going to Catholic church, but we were not Catholic.
Huh.
So yeah, so we would sit in the pew and have to like turn our knees every time communion happened for years and years and years, because we didn't go up and take communion because we were not Catholic.
Right.
But my parents went to church pretty regularly, and that meant I went to church pretty regularly. And then in my early teen years, I went through the
Uh-huh.
RCIA,
Yeah.
the classes that you take to decide if you are going to take your first communion. And there were 4 of us, my siblings and I, that were close in age, and so we were all going through RCIA, I think that's the acronym, at the same time. And my stepsister and my brother both went through confirmation and became formally Catholic. My stepbrother and I did not. We went through RCIA and we did not do confirmation. And my parents at this time were still not Catholic. They didn't, and they weren't going through the RCIA process. So then,
Fascinating. It's like so fragmented, right?
yeah,
And like sort of one foot in, one foot out. I want to back up
yeah,
very briefly. There are some folks who are listening who may not have any idea what Baha'i is.
okay.
Would you mind just giving like the tiniest overview or what your experience of what was it?
Sure. So what I understand, and I'm sure that this is just through the lens of a little kid understanding what it is. That okay, it's a faith that branched off from Islam in the mid 1800s. There were 2 prophets, Baha'u'llah and Abdul Baha, and I can't remember which guy came first and which guy came second, but one of them foretold of this other prophet coming. And the I think Baha'u'llah is the main prophet guy, and he is supposedly the second coming of Jesus, the reincarnation of Jesus. And so this faith is saying that there have been all of these great religions in the past, and they have taught us various things, and the Baha'i faith is supposed to be kind of the culmination of these different religions. And Jesus came back to earth, and so now our job is to build God's kingdom of heaven on earth, and so to get rid of all of the isms like racism and sexism. So they still have some pretty wonky views about sexuality, and anyway,
Yeah.
they've got some retrogressive views, but like there was this kind of idea about building this beautiful kingdom of heaven on earth, and I think I mentioned this. There's not like a formal clergy. There's not like so there's no clergy. It's almost like Quaker meeting style in terms of what the I don't even know if you would use the word services, but what the religious experiences are. But I was very young, so I don't really remember a lot about it. I remember that the people in general were kind, and that it was for like outsiders. It was not like traditional mainstream American culture.
Got it.
And yeah, so that's about that's all I can do.
No, and that's perfect. I'm actually much more interested in like what the like little kid version of that was, right?
Uh-huh.
And because then like little kid goes for like, okay, this is a place where we go where the people are nice, but they're definitely not like normal everyday folks. And like now we're gonna like go to a bunch of different things, and then we land in this Catholic place where we're also still outsiders.
Hmm.
And so like the experience too of like number one, it being okay for you and your stepbrother to choose not to become right to go through confirmation, but that your brother and your stepsister did. Is that right? Right. So it's like it's
Hmm.
just like really fascinating to have that like the like in and out. Anyway, I
Yeah.
interrupted you. I want you to
That's a,
like
yeah, I mean, I think that's a really insightful description of kind of how I have felt in the world more generally and in my spiritual life, is that being um, present in spaces but not feeling that I belonged in fully in spaces. And also this independence of thought that I have always exercised, and I can remember when I was quite little, my dad was working for Duke Hospital System, and this was before gay marriage was legal in the United States, and Duke had decided that they were going to extend family benefits to same-sex couples because they couldn't get married under the law, but they wanted the families of their gay employees to be able to benefit from with the benefits. And I can remember my dad had some retrogressive beliefs about that, and he like wrote a letter to the president of Duke about like why this was wrong or bad or whatever. And
wow.
and as a I know, and as a little kid, like young kid, it must I was under 11. He left that job when I was 12. So I was, let's say 10 years old, 9 years old, something. I, I knew in my heart that my dad was wrong, and I didn't know why, but I just knew that my dad was wrong. And
Hmm.
I don't know that I like made a big deal of it, but I just have kind of always had this sense of independence, even if I don't have like a logical or rational or an argument about why I'm right. I have had a sense of right and wrong,
Yeah.
that goes against either my authority structures,
Yeah.
and
Whether
yeah.
yeah, to be that age and be like, no, you're wrong. And not like no, you're wrong in like I mean, I think all of us as kids, like when we're growing up, part of becoming an individual is pushing back against your parents, right? And being like, no, I want blah, 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 blah. Um, I had like a stubborn streak, but I don't remember ever at that age seeing something that my parents, especially something my parents felt strongly about. Like to see a parent have something that they really believed strongly, and to be like, no, that's you're incorrect, and to not like also like I don't know, throw down about it. It's really interesting. It's so funny to me the way that like we are all individual, unique beings, even when we're little, right? That and like
Mhm.
threads of those stories that continue.
Yeah. So I've always had this um, sense, also of that I think that everyone should have the utmost amount of freedom in their life um, to do what they want, so long as it doesn't harm others, and institutional rules that don't allow that have always seemed unjust to me.
Yeah. So you decide not to be confirmed.
Mhm.
And then what happens?
um, I, I I've always been like a seeker. So the reason I should say the reason I decided not to be confirmed, because we had to make an oath or affirmation that we believe that Jesus Christ was the Son of God and divine, and like I really liked I liked the people I was with. I liked the formal structures of the church. I liked all of the stuff, but like the taking this oath, I didn't feel that inside of me, and there was something in me that just wouldn't just go along and take an oath that I didn't believe in, yeah, so that's why I decided not to become confirmed. But I was a seeker. I wanted to believe. I wanted this thing, but I never felt it. I never felt the divine. I never felt God. I never felt. I wanted it. And I like. I can remember going. One of my friends in high school was a Mormon, and I would go to like the Mormon services with him, and I would go to other. I did. There was something called. I think it was called Young Life, which was like a Christian.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my sister was real big. My stepsister was real big into Young Life, and I would go and to those events and like do Bible study, and like I really wanted to, and I put a lot of effort into trying to get on board, but I just could not get on board with any religion because I never felt God, never
Yeah.
until I was 41.
Okay. What happened when you were 41? Should we just jump forward? That's so cool.
Sure.
Yeah.
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 And I should say that I was so I was a seeker, and then at a certain point in time I became a disillusioned or jaded seeker, and so then I became kind of I never like militant, but I became an atheist, and I was, loud and proud about there not being anything other than this material existence. And I think that it was just kind of this disappointed or broken hearted feeling. Like I never felt God. And so like I just was like, it doesn't exist. And these other people who think it does are idiots, or they've been fooled by these structures and systems. So I was that I was an atheist for a long time, or that's how I self-identified. There was always kind of this hope inside of me, but
Yeah.
but it had turned into this thing like this doesn't exist, even if I want it to exist.
Yeah. And also like when you're that brokenhearted, right? Like when you go seeking, like again, that like that curious heart, that's like, but like surely somewhere there is something for me. Like at some point you shut it down to protect yourself from
Yeah,
being like disappointed or brokenhearted again. And that
yeah,
I wonder how many folks who self-identify as atheists feel that way, right?
yeah.
Or the flip side, the really like tragic flip side of like seeing what godly people do, and if that is
Hmm.
what godly people do, I don't want any part of it.
Yeah.
Um,
There was also some of that too, seeing the hypocrisy of people that purported to have this belief and how they showed up in the world. Yeah,
yeah.
so that's how I was for most of my life. And then or most of my adult life. And then when I was 41, I did acid for the first time. And
Hmm.
I had
Good
the
old Ramdas entry point, right?
yeah, exactly.
Love it.
Yeah, and I had the whole thing. I had the whole experience. I understood that I was part of this bigger thing, that I was not alone. I had always felt like separate and bad, like something was wrong with me, and that I was separate because of my wrongness and badness. And this experience, I just realized I was part of this fabric, and that included, like, I can remember looking at the on my pool surround outside, and which is a natural stone, and I could like see the stone like breathing. It almost looked like coral under the water. It was like breathing, and I looked at the fence boards, and they were like breathing, and I realized I was part of this whole thing, and that I also had this experience of seeing other people that I don't know, but a number of other people, and we were all kind of in a tree together, and these other people would be able to hear or hear my thoughts immediately, and that was okay, because I had felt like I couldn't show all of myself, because if people knew what was going on inside of me, then they would know how bad and wrong I was. And so to have this experience where there was no way to hide, and that was okay. Like whatever I was thinking was okay. And so I've forgotten, almost everything that I knew and learned through that experience. But what I came back with was this understanding that there is something beyond our material existence. There is this universe, God, whatever we want to call it, and we are all part of it. And it was an incredibly healing experience for me.
It sounds so healing. And to be a part of something, right, that you said before, like you always sort of felt like it's that old like mystic saying is actually the way I heard it, which is like we are in the world but not of the world, right? And that sometimes that feels really isolating and alienating. And for whatever reason, where my brain is going is to the notion of original sin.
Mm.
And like just a natural curiosity of like which came first. Is it that original sin came first, right? That like we there's something inherently wrong with us, and we need to beg for forgiveness and like pray and all of that stuff in order to be saved? Or is it that somewhere in all of our psyches we have this fear that there's something wrong with us that we can't allow other people to see, or we will be expelled, right? I mean, literally, we will be like ejected from the garden.
Yeah.
And so here's this story, right, that just so perfectly encapsulates that feeling that we all know something about, of like, I'm not good enough. I don't belong. I'm not allowed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And what a miracle for that to just like go away.
Yeah, I mean
I mean, maybe not forever, right?
Yeah, it flipped. It flipped. It was like a knife's edge. Like I just had a new understanding, and then you go back to your old patterning. It's not like that just disappeared forever from my life, but there was this touchstone that I had from that point forward of knowing that I'm part of that I'm part of this bigger thing, and that I'm not wrong, and that I when I can share myself with people, and be included in this thing, rather than feeling like I have to hide to be accepted in whatever communities I'm involved in.
And I don't think there's a single person walking the earth that doesn't know that feeling of like, I can't bring my whole self here. If they find out this part of me, I will no longer be welcome.
Yeah, and we talked about like my Dharma statement about like I try to live as openly and authentically and vulnerably as possible, or that I have the courage to do in any given moment. And part of that is to hopefully help other people feel less alone and feel like they can show up as their whole selves, and that's okay too.
Yeah. I that reminds me of the Marianne Williamson quote, right? About like it's not our darkness that most I'll put the whole thing in the show notes, right? But it's not our
Yeah.
darkness that we're most afraid of, but it's that our light. And that when we can allow ourselves to shine brilliantly, just by doing that, we give everybody else permission to do it. But I also I feel like you will appreciate this. This morning I was reading the Bhakti Sutras, and there's a similar sutra in there that says like the person who is so like enveloped in love, enveloped in devotion, right, which is what bhakti is about, um, automatically inspires that same feeling in the people that they're with. And yeah, like what a gift to give to people. So, how would you describe your spiritual life today?
I can say I'm a yogi. Yeah, I follow the Bhakti yoga path. But I'm also Catholic in the small C sense, in that I don't follow a single path, and I am still curious and seek other things out. And so, for instance, I'm part of a Vedic meditation group that doesn't it's pre yoga. So I would say that the things that I have learned um, in my yoga path are the ones that resonate most deeply with me. But I don't say like I have a particular lineage. Like I definitely collect practices and even ideas from lots of different sources still.
Yeah. Yeah.
I kind of so like Ram Dass is a huge inspiration for me, and I love how he combines Buddhism and Bhakti, and yeah. So I collect the things that seem true to me from wherever they come from.
Yeah. I think it's the thing to me about spirituality is that it is spirituality is always about asking the question and acknowledging that the question may never be answered, right? But that like that seeking is
Hmm.
then also like just such a deep part of you.
Yeah, I actually had started reading a book that my friend Sophia loaned me, written by Trungpa Rinpoche,
Uh-huh.
called, what is it called? Crazy Wisdom, crazy
That
something,
sounds right.
or
Yeah.
and it's all about that, that the path of spirituality is the unending questioning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like really uncomfortable. It's like the human need for clarity and certainty is a really strong one. And I think in a lot of ways, like, our spiritual practice is one of the ways that we're just like, "Okay, actually, we have no idea what's happening next." Um, and we're just yeah, we're along for the ride, and
Mhm.
that makes everyday life so much easier. Um,
Yeah, and I would say that I really like I like practices, and I am not so concerned with doctrine or intellectually understanding. In my yoga teacher training, we learned these frameworks, that like the 37, 32 tattvas and the Purusha and
mhm. Prakriti,
anyway.
yeah, all the thing
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah.
and like, all my eyes kind of glaze over. Sometimes it's useful to have an intellectual framework in order to understand the experience, but for me, it's always goes back to the experience that I'm having. And so, yeah, I have a teacher and friend who's very into the intellectual aspects, and like everything is, I don't know if that's top down or whatever, but like that's where he comes from, and it doesn't matter to me. It like that stuff doesn't. I don't need to know the answers in that kind of way, because my way of knowing is this experiential knowing, and I'm
Yeah.
okay with. Sometimes it makes me feel like a dum dum, because like I don't know.
I don't think
If you ask
anybody
me,
would call you a dum dum. Just for the record, I would never. That is not a no.
well, but I mean, like, it makes me feel like I don't have the intellectual or academic rationale for the way I show up in the world. And then I'm like, it doesn't matter. I'm showing up in the world. I'm doing the things that make me feel connected to the divine. And I am noticing that the more I am connected to the divine, the more help I can be to others in the world. And so that's what's working for me.
Yeah, it seems pretty simple. It's so interesting because from where I'm sitting, like the way that that appears to me is not like a dum dum. It's much more. It's profoundly humble. One, and it's also I my like uh one of my self-defense mechanisms is to just learn more and know more, right?
Hmm.
As if I could learn everything there is to learn about, Bhakti or yoga or the Vedas or, any of the philosophy systems, then I will like be able to control. I mean, it's really about
Hmm.
control and
Yeah.
staying safe. And so I will always obviously project that onto everybody else. And so when I see other people doing that, I'm just like, "Oh, honey, you'll never know it all,
Yeah.
right? You'll
Yeah.
never understand it because by its nature, it's beyond understanding."
Yeah. And it's funny because in my, outside of spirituality life, I definitely like I'm a lawyer, and it's all about learning. It's all about knowledge. And so like that is the hat I put on for most of my life, is like trying to be expert, and it does feel like a control mechanism, but somehow I'm just able to exist in this other way of being in this part of my life, and it's okay for me. And it's in some uh, during teacher training, people would like ask these clarifying questions about something that we read in one of the encyclopedias of various things, and I'm like, in my brain, I'm like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But whatever. Different strokes for different folks. We're
Exactly.
all these unique puzzle pieces, and we all have to get there in our own ways. And
Yeah,
yeah.
and they're all different paths up the mountain, and I appreciate that there is like a yana path, right? That's like
Yeah.
this is one of the ways to like this is so yana yoga is like the yoga of knowledge. It's like you're learning and studying and like reading the texts and yeah, and like you're studying the tattvas and all of that stuff. Agree, yeah. Um, but that even the great, I mean, I'm thinking about, I think it's Ramakrishna. Now I can't remember, but I have this set of books that are these like lectures that he gave in like the early like 19 teens, 1920s. And like he's like, and this is jnana yoga, and that's and here's Raja yoga, right? And then here's karma, and like not presenting one as better or worse than the other, but like some people have the constitution for this path. Some
Hmm.
people have the constitution for this path, and that they all arrive theoretically in the same place. Anyway, sorry, that's my
No, I think that's important, and um
yeah.
that's better said than the way I was trying to say it. But yes,
No,
yeah.
not
I
at
mean,
all.
so,
You mentioned a minute ago, like really feeling committed to experience, right, and experiencing, and I think that is one of the things yoga teaches us, right? That yoga is a direct experience of something, and so I'm going to ask these questions out of order. I want you to share, like, is there a spiritual practice that is allowing you to experience the divine more fully these days?
yeah. I mean, I love lots of practices, and I would say like many of them have to do with sound, and
Mm.
So, one of the practices that I have really been enjoying is Om chanting or rolling Ohms. There's lots of different names for the practice, but it's the idea is, or at least the way I love doing it, is it's not an individual practice, it's a group practice. And you just say Om over and over and over and over again for a sustained amount of time, like 45 minutes. And I love that practice because you get so many, every time you're going to say an Om, you get a new chance to see what comes up in you. And like there's a lot of, at least initially for me, there was a lot of self-consciousness about like, does my Om sound right? Am I doing this well?
All the
Like,
thing. Yeah.
yeah. Oh,
All our shit shows up, right?
yeah.
That's how you know
Yeah.
it's a good practice.
Yeah. And like the being able to just meet it over and over and over and over again in every moment, it's, oh man, it's so good. And what happens for me is, and it's also been really good for identifying when I'm efforting versus when I'm allowing. So a lot of times I'm like really trying to like make this sound in like the best way, and I'm doing it for like good reasons. Like I want everyone else in the room to have this good experience. And then there's, a little bit of savior complex, like, and you're really good at this, so you got to carry your weight, Zia, to make sure this is a good experience for everybody. And I just will effort. And then sometimes I'm like, what would it be like to dial it back and just allow a little bit more ease? And I can feel in my body the well, it's a lot easier to be easeful rather than to effort it. Like I don't have to keep the plane in the air. I can surrender and allow, and it turns out that it's like I'm even more powerful when I'm allowing rather than efforting, because what I'm doing is I'm tapping in to something bigger than myself, like this universal consciousness. And sometimes I can have this feeling of when I'm doing it just right, when I'm just allowing, surrendering just right, I can feel this energy come in through the top of my head, and it just like comes out of my mouth. It's almost like a rushing river, and it's fantastic. And I love the um so the practice is like asynchronous oming, so not everybody is starting and stopping at the same time. And so what happens is this either wall or dome of sound just exists that is separate from any, and so you kind of jump into this stream of this thing that is this living, it's not, maybe not a being, but like there is this thing that is separate from each individual that is making the sound. It becomes its own thing, and you can jump in and out and kind of dance in it. And supposedly there's like 7 sacred sounds that you can hear. I haven't heard all 7, but I've definitely heard some of them. Like one of them is like the sound of angels singing. And some people might say like, well, these are, I think they're called overtones in the musical sense. And so like there's a scientific, or there's an explanation for these sounds, but they exist separate from the noise that you're making as an individual. And it is, oh, it's delicious. I love this practice so much. But and as you know, I love kirtan, I love mantra, I love asana. But right now, like sound
Yeah.
is like really inspiring for me.
I also love that practice. I think
I
what's interesting is It's not the first place that I practiced it, but one of the places we used to do it was in the Iyengar studio, of all places, right? You're just like,
Wow.
wait, what? Right? Exactly. It's like you would think. Um, and the way that I was instructed is that it's Patanjali talks about it, that it is the pranava practice, is that's what I was told it was called. And there is something about, it's like both a metaphor and not, right? It's like a symbol of itself, and it's right that we are all contributing. We are all a part. It's like the experience you had by the pool, right? Like we are all vibrating. We are all participating and connected. We all belong. We all go at our own pace and our own rate, right? Following our breath, our own tone, our own, right? We bring our unique sound, and that when all the sounds come together, this like extraordinary other thing happens, um, which is my understanding of the divine. And you could just be like, okay, whatever, it's a bunch of people making sound in a room, but it sure doesn't feel like that.
No. And there one of the parts I love about it is like when this wall of sound exists, sometimes if I can get the sound that I'm making internally to match just right with the sound in the room, then it feels like my body disappears. Like there's no boundary between me and um this experience. It's an
Yeah,
incredible practice.
I love that. Um, do you ever find yourself using that discernment around efforting and allowing in the other parts of where you're like, oh, wait, here's a thing that I know from Om chanting. I'm going to see if I can. You're
Oh
nodding your
yeah.
head. Yes. You're like,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm trying to um take the yoga off the mat in terms of that with my work in particular, because there's a lot of fear of failure, that kind of fear of disappointment, that kind of stuff. And the way I had historically dealt with that was through over efforting or becoming the most prepared dude in the room, or like being the expert. And that's how I would make sure that I was safe. And now I'm trying to remember that I have this wisdom inside of me, and that I don't have to over effort in order to contribute and do a good job. So yeah, I mean, so I do it in lots of my practices. Like uh, one of the statements that one of my teachers says a lot in asana class is like, what would it be like to do a little bit less and breathe a little bit more? And I love that. So I mean, I definitely, that surrender, I try to notice when I'm not in that space, and move into the surrender space in a lot of my spiritual practices. And I'm also trying to incorporate that into taking the yoga off the mat the rest of my life.
Yeah. And I think that's what the practices are for, right?
Yeah.
I I was thinking about when you were sharing about own chanting, and that thing about like it turns out like when you allow a little bit more and you soften, right? It's like on the surface you're quote unquote doing less, but somehow then you feel like you have access to a greater power and a greater capacity,
Yeah.
and that's true in pretty much every aspect of our lives. But it's scary. It's pretty
It is.
it's really scary.
Yeah, that surrender. But for yeah, this I mean, that surrender is, yeah, like not having anything to stand on, and your ego structures are super scared that like if I let go, what if it isn't enough? What if it isn't? And my rational brain's like, every time you let go, it is enough, and in fact it's even better. But there still is that fear. Yeah.
What a nice friend your rational brain is. Yeah, but because it's true, right? Like, um, and so cool that you've had like when we've had enough experience in life of like, okay, I'm just gonna let go a little, and that it's always turned out okay,
Mhm.
whatever okay means. You might maybe have already answered this question, but when you think about a spiritual principle, right? Is there something that steps forward as like, especially in this moment of your life, really important?
The the words that this brings to my mind are, and I'm not sure if this is in order, and I'm not sure that these are different concepts, but freedom, like liberation, um, love, and union, and surrender, and the yeah, the I mean, and I'm not sure that those are different things, but sometimes one word is feeling particularly resonant, and sometimes another word is feeling particularly resonant. But yeah, that I mean, that's for me is what all of this is about is being able to live in with total freedom, and that the when we are living in this way with total freedom, the thing that is natural is um to love and take care of each other, and the thing that keeps us from being able to do that is our efforting or control, and so surrender is the kind of the pathway to these yeah, to living in love.
Yeah, it's like they all are happening at the same time.
Mhm.
Um, and I was almost like hesitant to ask you the question because of what you said earlier about like, all of the, structures and philosophical systems. And often I think spiritual principles can be very like intellectual or philosophical. But that notion of, I do also think that's an experience that all of us have had. My hope is that it's an experience that all of us have had of being that feeling of being completely free, totally allowing everything that's happening. I mean, it is sort of that feeling of falling in love, right? So long as you can, stop yourself from, right? You'd like hold on
Grasping
to all grasp,
attachment, yeah.
yeah, and all the things. You're just like free,
Yeah.
um, yeah, and then it's like it's all that's left is love and loving.
Yeah.
And that word for me still has so much baggage. One day, one day I'll be able to release all the baggage that comes with that word. But yeah, like the notion of freedom, so interesting. Since we started with your chart, of course, I'm like, I want to know. I was like, where's Uranus? What's happening? It's a very Uranian conversation, I think,
Mm.
that we've had, right? About this notion of like free thinking and not being bound and like being our independent self, right? And that is what freedom is, you know. And when we're in that free state, like then we love ourselves, we love everybody else, right? It's like you, however you need to be, you can
Yeah.
be.
Yep. Yeah. One thing I love that you say pretty regularly is that when we are accessing this part of ourselves, then we show up as peace in the world, and we can give that peace to everyone we come into contact with. And yeah, I love that. That's one of my touchstones is like, am I showing up as peace in my interactions?
Yeah, it's now, since you have been through teacher training and we've talked a little bit about inside baseball, as a teacher, you teach the thing that you need to hear over and over again. And, and hearing you say that, I'm like, yeah, that is a thing that I know for sure. And and we have all experienced, right? Like like when you're with someone who is so rooted and in the like and it's like inner peace is like an allowing of everything to be there just as it is, a loving and a freedom of it, like, and not fighting against some inner part of ourself. And there is so much like density and weight there that like it has gravity, right? That's how it feels. It's like it has gravity. And I repeat that over and over and over again because it is also my aspiration. And as you were saying it, all I could think was, "Oh, I'm so bad at it." So bad at being peace.
Oh, I'm not. I mean,
Isn't that funny?
I'm not sure that that's true, but I thought of this earlier this week. It was last week actually. I had gone to a hearing, and this was the first time I'd touched the world of immigration since I left my job like about 6 months ago, and I was wondering how it would be because I have some trauma from my job, and I was like, how's it going to be? The hearing went well. We got good result for the client. And then as I walked out to my car in the parking lot, when I opened the door, my door like hit the car next to me, not hard, and I didn't like leave a mark, but the person was in the car, and she like yelled out to me like, hey, you banged my car. And I just was like, give me a break. And I got in my car, and I was like kind of shaking, and I sat there and I put my hand on my chest for a while, and it took me, minutes and minutes of breathing and being with myself to get myself calmed down. And I was like, oh, even though everything went well, this was a very stressful thing, and you are dysregulated, Zia. And so I sat there, and then when I was finally in this place of peace, I like rolled down my window, and I apologized. I was like, I'm sorry for hitting your car with my door, and I'm sorry for my initial reaction. That's not how I intend to show up in the world. And when I was able to show up in that way, she was very understanding, but like it could have, if I had not gotten to that place of peace, I could have left that interaction and left a sour taste in her mouth and in mine. And but I was able to see that I was not showing up as peace in the moment, and then get myself to a place where I was, and then make reparations for the suffering I had caused.
What a fucking miracle. I'm sorry. That story is like, it's like the whole thing in a tiny nutshell.
Mhm.
And that, like, that is what our practices give us access to, right? It gives us a pathway back to that place where we can, number one, tend to ourselves, like, have
Mhm.
this deep feeling of compassion, like, oh, sure, everything went well, but this is still really hard. And to like see that and welcome it and allow it, right? To be in surrender and love for that part of you. And then what we can do in relationship with other, right? How many people would have just been like, whatever, fuck off, right? And got in the car and driven away.
And I'm one of those people. Like I like that instinct was there, but then I just
Sure.
now I know that there is a different way that I can exist in the world if I can just come back home to myself, my source.
Yeah. When I think about words like freedom and liberation, um, and doing like, liberatory practices, right? So, that might sound political, right? That might sound like social justice to some people, but it's like what it looks like to be working in every moment to allow people to be their whole selves, including us, um, and to be able to hold them with love. It sounds really like frilly on the outside, but that is the work.
It
That's
is
it.
revolutionary. Yeah. It is. It
Yeah.
is. Yeah. It is.
What a beautiful conversation. I'm so grateful to know you and for you to have shared a little fragment, a little piece of yourself with us. Is there anything that you want to share before we close?
Trademark pending. This is something that I say so regularly that, that there was a joke in my yoga teacher training cohort that we were going to get merchandise printed up with my face on it that says yoga is such good medicine, and it has been incredible for me. It has allowed me to show up in the world in the way that I want to, and even even when I make mistakes, like I did with the person that I ran into in the parking lot, like I'm able to hold myself in love and also hold others in love too. And yeah, for me, it's made all the difference in my life.
Such a beautiful note to end on. Thank you so much. Thanks for tuning in, Curious Hearts. If this episode was useful, I hope you'll follow the show or leave a review or share it with somebody who you think needs it. And if you're craving support on your own spiritual path or seeking some meaningful work, you can find ways to work with me at veralester.com. Otherwise, until next time, please stay grounded in that curiosity that you've got and keep turning towards what matters. See y'all soon.